When I married Cassian, I thought I had found my forever. He was everything I had dreamed of in a partner, charming, kind, and attentive. We built a life together that felt like it was pulled straight from a fairy tale. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. And then Kaeli was born, making everything feel even more perfect. She was our pride and joy, the light of our lives. From her first steps to her first words, Cassian and I marveled at the family we had created together. I felt so fortunate, so secure in the love we shared, that I never saw the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Over the years, things began to change in subtle ways. At first, I brushed them off. Cassian worked longer hours, his phone seemed to be glued to his hand, and he often seemed distracted, even when we were together. I convinced myself it was just the stress of life, the weight of responsibilities, and the inevitable ebb and flow of a long marriage. I told myself every couple goes through rough patches, and this was ours. I didn't want to believe anything could be wrong. I didn't want to think that the man I had loved so deeply could betray the bond we had spent years building. Kaeli, too, began to change. As she grew older, her sweet demeanor shifted. She became more distant, more critical of me in small but noticeable ways. I thought it was just the turbulence of teenage years, a phase that would eventually pass. I tried to reach out, to connect with her the way we used to, but it felt like she was slipping through my fingers. At the time, I didn't realize what was truly happening. I didn't understand that the man I had trusted with my heart was turning my own daughter against me. The truth came crashing down on me one unremarkable afternoon. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation or a sudden revelation. Instead, it unfolded slowly, painfully, like watching a wound being reopened. Cassian didn't even deny it when I finally confronted him about the affair. He was calm, almost detached, as if he had rehearsed the moment in his mind. He had been seeing someone else for months, building a life with her in secret, while I was left to hold together the home we had once shared. The worst part wasn't just the betrayal, it was realizing how little remorse he felt. And then there was Kaeli. My daughter, my flesh and blood, stood by his side. She didn't comfort me, didn't share in my pain. Instead, she looked at me with cold eyes, echoing her father's accusations. They both made it clear that I was the problem, that I was standing in the way of their happiness. It was as if I had been erased from my own life, replaced by someone they no longer wanted or needed. In that moment, I wasn't just heartbroken, I was utterly shattered. The divorce wasn't a mutual decision. It was something they forced upon me, eroding my dignity piece by piece. I had always thought marriage was about weathering storms together, about working through the cracks to make something stronger, but Cassian didn't see it that way. He saw me as an obstacle, someone standing in the way of his new life with her. It wasn't just about leaving me, it was about removing me entirely, as though I had no place in the world he wanted to build. What hurt the most was Kaeli's involvement. My own daughter, the one I had carried, nurtured, and loved with every fiber of my being, stood by her father's side through it all. I tried to talk to her, to remind her of the bond we shared, but she wouldn't hear it. She parroted his words, accusing me of being bitter, clinging to something that was already gone. It was as though she had been swept into his orbit, completely consumed by his narrative. The girl I once knew, the one who used to curl up in my lap and tell me all her secrets, was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized, someone who looked at me with disdain instead of love. The legal process was brutal. Every meeting, every document I signed felt like another nail in the coffin of the life I had built. Cassian and his mistress were unapologetic, their smug confidence making it clear that they believed they were entitled to this new chapter, no matter the cost to me. I felt powerless, like I was watching my own life unravel in slow motion. Even the house, the home I had poured my heart into for years, was taken from me. It became theirs, a shell of the memories we had shared, now filled with their plans and dreams. Kaeli didn't just side with him, she actively participated in the process. She backed him up at every turn, her words sharper than I thought possible. It was as if she had rewritten our history, erasing the years of love and sacrifice I had given her. I couldn't understand how she could stand by and watch as I was dismantled, piece by piece, without so much as a second thought. It felt like a betrayal so profound that there were no words to describe it. The day they left was quiet, almost unnervingly so. There was no shouting, no grand farewell, just the sound of the door closing behind them. I watched as they walked away, hand in hand, off to their new life. I stood there, frozen, the emptiness of the house closing in around me. It was a silence that felt deafening, a stark reminder that I was truly alone. In the weeks that followed, I felt like a ghost in my own life. The world moved on around me, but I was stuck, drowning in the weight of what had happened. It was a pain so deep, so consuming, that I wondered if I would ever feel whole again. The days after the divorce were the hardest I had ever known. My world, once filled with laughter and purpose, had been stripped bare. I woke up each morning to an empty house, the echoes of what once was haunting every corner. There were no footsteps in the hall, no laughter in the kitchen, just silence. I often sat in the living room, staring at the walls, replaying every moment that had led to this point. The betrayal, the loss, the abandonment, it all felt insurmountable. I grieved not only for my marriage but for the family I thought I had. Cassian and Kaeli weren't just my husband and daughter, they were my anchors, my reasons for pushing forward every day. Losing them both at once was like losing pieces of myself. For weeks I felt paralyzed by the weight of it all, unsure of how to move forward. The pain was so consuming that even the smallest tasks felt monumental. I stopped taking care of myself, stopped reaching out to friends. I was ashamed of my brokenness, afraid they wouldn't understand. But something inside me refused to let go entirely. As much as I wanted to retreat into that darkness, there was a tiny spark of defiance that wouldn't be extinguished. I began to realize that I couldn't live like this forever. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, I started taking steps to piece myself back together. Therapy became a lifeline. At first, I was hesitant, unsure if talking about my pain would do anything to lessen it. But week by week, I found myself opening up, unraveling the tangled mess of emotions I had been carrying. My therapist helped me see that the betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth, that their actions spoke more about them than about me. It was a small comfort, but it was enough to keep me going. I also started exploring hobbies I had long abandoned. Painting, something I hadn't done since my college days, became a solace. I would lose myself in the colors, the strokes of the brush, finding a peace I hadn't known in years. I joined a local art class where I met others who were also rebuilding their lives in different ways. Their stories, their resilience inspired me to keep pushing forward. My friends, too, played a crucial role. Though I had pushed them away in my initial despair, they never gave up on me. They showed up at my door, brought me meals, and reminded me of the person I had been before all this. Their unwavering support was a reminder that I wasn't as alone as I felt. Then came the moment that truly changed everything. It was unexpected, as most life-altering moments are. I met someone who saw me, not as the shattered woman I believed myself to be, but as someone deserving of love and happiness. His kindness, patience, and understanding slowly broke down the walls I had built around myself. We didn't rush into anything, but over time, our bond grew. When we found out we were expecting a child, it felt like a turning point. For the first time in years, I felt hope. Holding my son in my arms, I realized that life, even after unimaginable pain, could still offer moments of pure joy. He became my reason to keep going, to keep fighting for the life I deserved. When my son was born, it felt like the universe was giving me a second chance. Holding him in my arms for the first time, I was overwhelmed with emotions I hadn't felt in years: joy, hope, and an overwhelming sense of purpose. His tiny fingers curled around mine, and in that moment, the pain of the past seemed to fade, if only for a while. I looked into his eyes and promised him that his life would be different. He would grow up surrounded by love, support, and stability, things I had fought so hard to rebuild for both of us. Raising him became my focus, my anchor. Every day brought new milestones and new reasons to smile. His laughter filled the once empty house, and his curiosity about the world reignited something within me. Watching him grow was like seeing life through fresh eyes. The sleepless nights, the endless diaper changes, and the chaos that came with motherhood didn't feel like a burden, they felt like a privilege. He gave me a purpose, a reason to move forward, and a reminder that life could be beautiful again. The home I created for us was nothing like the one I had lost. It was smaller, simpler, but it was ours. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every little detail carried a story of resilience and hope. The walls, once barren and silent, now showcased his drawings and photos of our small but happy family. The sound of his footsteps running through the halls, his excited chatter as he discovered new things, brought warmth and life back into the space. I found joy in the simple moments, reading him bedtime stories, watching his face light up when he tried new foods, or hearing him say "mama" with such pure affection. Those moments reminded me that my life wasn't defined by what I had lost, but by what I had gained. He was my fresh start, my reminder that love and family could take on new forms. Financially, things weren't always easy, but I made it work. I took on freelance projects, juggling work and motherhood with determination. It wasn't glamorous, but it was fulfilling. Every dollar I earned, every small victory I achieved was a testament to my strength and resilience. I didn't need anyone else to take care of me. I was capable of building a life for us on my own. I also reconnected with myself in ways I hadn't anticipated. Motherhood wasn't just about giving him the best life possible, it was also about becoming the best version of myself. I embraced my independence, learned to celebrate my own accomplishments, and discovered that my worth wasn't tied to my past. I found hobbies that brought me peace, friends who uplifted me, and a community that supported me. My son became a symbol of everything I had fought for. He reminded me that life could be rebuilt, that happiness could be found even after the deepest betrayals. With him, I didn't just survive, I thrived. My life wasn't what I had originally envisioned, but it was beautiful in its own way. Together we had created something new, something unbreakable. Years later, when Cassian and Kaeli returned, it was like watching ghosts from a past life walk through the door. I hadn't seen or heard from them in years, not a call, not a message, nothing. They had moved on, built their new life, and left me to pick up the pieces. So when they showed up unannounced, looking for forgiveness, I was stunned. It was as though time had rewound itself, but I wasn't the same woman they had left behind. Cassian looked older, worn down by the weight of his choices. The arrogance and confidence he once carried were gone, replaced by a hollow expression. He barely met my eyes as he spoke, stumbling through some explanation of how things had fallen apart. His mistress, the woman he had left me for, was no longer in the picture. Their perfect life had crumbled under the weight of its own lies and betrayals. Now, he was standing on my doorstep, asking for a chance to start over. Kaeli stood beside him, looking uneasy. She couldn't meet my gaze, her posture tense and uncertain. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the realization of what she had done all those years ago. My daughter, who had once chosen her father and his mistress over me, was now back, hoping to reclaim the relationship she had abandoned. There was a time when I would have given anything to have her back, but now, things were different. I had spent years rebuilding my life, creating a home filled with love and laughter. My son, who was now a curious, bright-eyed boy, had become my world. He didn't know the pain of betrayal, the weight of abandonment. All he knew was the warmth of a mother who loved him fiercely and unconditionally. I had fought hard to protect him from the shadows of my past, and I wasn't about to let those shadows back in. Cassian and Kaeli didn't expect to find me thriving. They didn't expect to see the strength I had gained or the joy I had found. I could see the surprise in their faces as they took in my home, my son, and the life I had built without them. They had assumed I would still be broken, waiting for their return. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I had grown, healed, and found a happiness they couldn't take away. When they asked for forgiveness, I didn't react with anger or bitterness. Instead, I calmly told them that I had moved on. Forgiveness for me wasn't about letting them back into my life, it was about letting go of the pain they had caused. I didn't need their apologies to heal, I had already done that on my own. As they left, I felt a sense of closure. They had lost the life they had once taken for granted, while I had found something far greater. My son and I had created a family that was stronger and more loving than anything I had known before. Their return wasn't the beginning of a new chapter, it was the final page of a story I had already left behind.